Well, hey guys, it's Dr. Drake 63 here. How are you today? Today I want to talk a little bit about what I consider to be some disappointing performances by a couple manufacturers in the AR world build, and particularly in bolt carrier groups. And the story basically starts off recently. One of my sons said, "Hey Dad, I want to build my first AR. Can you help me?" And I said, "Sure." The original plan was we were going to go ahead and spec out the whole thing, barrel, gas system, lower parts kit, the whole 9 yards. And he had some hard time finding some of those parts, mostly just because of what's going on in the current situation in the firearms industry and availability. So he ended up going out and buying a really nice BCM, complete upper minus the bolt carrier group, because he'd already purchased a bolt carrier group. And very nice kit. You know, obviously you guys know I like BCM and I think they do a tremendous job. So we just basically assembled the lower and went from there, and went to fire it the first time. And before he did that, he showed me the bolt that he got, the bolt carrier group, and it was from Fail Zero, and it was a nickel boron deal, which I've never been particularly attracted to. I do understand some guys like them because they do resist carbon sticking to them, a little bit easier to clean. But outside of that, there's nothing special about them. And the one he got from Failed Zero had an improperly staked gas key. And more specifically, it wasn't staked at all. There was a couple tool marks on either side of the screw, but no deformation of the metal going either around the circumference of the screw or tooling that continued on into the screw. So it was basically a non-staked gas key, and I suggest he take it back where he got it and get one that's right. They didn't have any other Fail Zeros, so he picked up one from CMMG, which costs the same, like 179 bucks, which I'm a guy that typically buys spikes or BCM bolt carrier groups. I've used them for years and have had zero problems with them, but he picked up one from CMMG and sent me some pictures. And as you can see, that was properly staked in the context that the metal going that surrounded the screw was deformed in such a way that it would prevent the screw from turning. Now that's not exactly what I like. I'm going to go ahead and take the spikes out of my 300 blackout, and you'll see right there, when you look at it right there, you'll see that the tooling extends on into these screws. So it's going to provide some resistance of them working loose. Doesn't mean they can't come out, but that's the way you're supposed to do it. And I've used these spikes for a long time with no problem. Well, he was having problems in terms of his shooting, in that it would cycle a couple of rounds and then nothing. And I said, well, you know, let's check the magazine. That's always the first thing I check with cycling issues. Magazine looked fine. We tried different magazines, some tried and true ones that I've used. And so the next thing I did was swap out this bolt, which is a Spikes. I've had this about 8 years. And then it's original bolt, right? So anyway, he swapped this out. He didn't have the problem at all. Well, you know, if you look at this just slides nice and easy, okay? When you first get them, they're a little stiff, but it should not hang up or anything like that, right? Well, the CMMG bolt carrier group that he had, when you went to pull it out about halfway, it kind of hung up and then clicked back out. And same thing when you pushed it back. So the bolt wasn't working properly. And I'm thinking, good Lord, you're spending $170 plus for a bolt carrier group that doesn't work out of the box when you properly lube it. There's something wrong there. And to have two you know, middle of the road to higher priced bolt carrier groups purchased on the from the same place that have issues with their manufacturing is real disappointing to me. That's for sure. And I'm not, and I'll go into detail on this in a second. I'm not a guy that says that you have to spend the most money and get the most expensive parts you can or they won't work. I don't believe that at all. I have done many builds now at this point, and I've either used spikes or BCM for my bolt carrier groups, but I will say that there was a point early on where I used, a couple times used an M16 bolt carrier group from Palmetto State Armory, which a lot of guys will knock, but guess what? I never had problems with them. Never had problems with this particular firearm. And this is the first build I ever did, and I've never had problems with it, except one time. I got a box of Aquila ammo in 300 blackout, and it was inconsistently making fire on the primers. And I realized upon visual inspection that I got a box of ammo that had improperly seated primers, had nothing to do with the firearm at all. Thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. I've lost count on this firearm, but it had never happened before. It never happened since. So, you know, you can have stuff like that, but to see the poor construction and what it is really lack of quality control. That things are going out in the door with that kind of price on a bulk carrier group, I think, is completely unacceptable. And I went to CMMG's website and did some checking after the fact, and you know, they talk about using the right materials, but they don't talk about HPT, which stands for high pressure testing. They don't talk about MPI, which stands for magnetic particle inspecting. And that means that if there's, during the machining process, a little flake or a little chunk of metals inside that chamber where your bolt travels, that means that they're going to catch that and get it out of there. A lot of these companies also, what they do is called batch testing, and spikes used to be that way. They're not anymore, I don't believe. BCM isn't, Daniel Defense isn't, Son of Liberty Gunworks, and some of the most expensive stuff you could get. They don't do this. But batch testing is when you say, hey, we just cranked out 50 or 100 of these. We're going to test one, and if it checks out okay, that means that they're all good. The better manufacturers are going to test every single one and not let anything go out their door that's not going to work. And if you're a law enforcement agency or something like that and you're purchasing this kind of kit, you need to know that it's going to work right off the bat. You can't put people's lives in danger. So interesting to point out, I don't have a particular bone to pick with either fail zero, although it's 1 for 1 on failing, in my view. And I don't have a bone to pick with CMMG. I've used their lower parts kits builds on builds before, and they work fine. But the bolt was very disappointing, and I think it's over time going to work itself out. I encouraged him to take it back. He's going to try to break it in, and that's his business. But you know, you don't have to spend $250 or $300 to get a high quality bolt. I think I paid $120 for this, and now they're probably closer to $140 or so if you can get them. But the point is, this is the heart. Okay, this is the heart of the gun. If this doesn't work, nothing else is. You can have barrel issues and still fire your gun. You can have buffer issues and you know, potentially just swap out your buffer spring or something. These are all parts that if this doesn't work, the rest of it's not going to work, and that's real important to make sure you get a good bolt carrier group. I mentioned this was my first build, and it really wasn't even a complete build. I bought this upper complete 8.5 inch 300 blackout from a distributor who carried Radical Firearms, and Radical Firearms does not have a super good name in the industry, but this particular one's worked out great for me. You see people getting arguments all the time about Palmetto State, and oh, their lowers aren't any good, and you need to get this or you need to get that. I typically will get, again, something like spikes or BCM. I've got a new build I'm starting with an Arrow, which I know to be good, but this one has functioned perfectly. Put in a drop-in trigger when I got it, and you know, here you go. It started out as a pistol, and I later applied for and received the SBR stamp on that. But you know, this thing at 100 yards with these open sights, which the rear one is a backup sight at the moment. I had a real nice matching Daniel Defense front sight on, or rear sight on this that I put on something else. But all of this has functioned perfectly. I've taken it in lots of different kind of weather. Like I said, put countless thousands of rounds through it. And I might have kind of got lucky with some of these parts, but these are working good. But at the heart of it, as I mentioned, is this Spikes Bull Carrier Group, which is 100% good gear, as I mentioned, as is the BCM and some other stuff. So, but I learned a lot with this build. I've had it, I want to say, coming up on 8 years, and it's done great for me. I've done a lot of builds since then with more expensive parts, and are they better rifles? I don't know. They cost more to put together, but like I said, this one's been great. Philosophy of use on 300 blackout for this particular non-silenced version. Philosophy of use on this is pretty basic. It's for shooting holes in paper. Makes a good near distance tree stand gun for whitetails, and I wouldn't feel bad about using this as a self-defense type of firearm, home defense, things like that. It would do the trick, and like I said, I know it goes bang every time. So like we said, it comes down to having knowledge of the parts, knowing what to get, but at the same point in time, do some research, understand the whole testing element, especially the important parts. I don't care if they test the grip, I don't care if they test the buffer, but I do care to know that it's going to be properly head spaced if you buy a complete upper. I do care to know that that the barrel has been inspected. I'm going to run a bore snake down it no matter what anyway when I get it, but I need to know that that stuff's going to work, and most certainly the Bull Carrier Group. Testing is important on that. Some companies do it, some don't. I don't know if it has a little bit of a function of 2020 where I imagine in this country and worldwide from a manufacturing standpoint, there might be a lot of lemons getting cranked out right now because people aren't working in their normal environments. I don't know. But keep that in mind when you're shopping for a Bull Carrier Group, when you're shopping for barrels, when you're shopping for stuff like that. Understand whether or not that company does testing, and if it doesn't clearly state that on their website, I'm going to very, very emphatically state that means they don't, because the people that do test brag about it. So there you go. Anyway, if you are into building ARs, assembling as others would put it, make sure you do your homework, enjoy it, be safe, and enjoy your shooting. This is DR Drake 63. Got out to the range today for the first time all summer. Post hip surgery now, 3 weeks, and I walked about 2 miles today. So thanks to my doctor, thanks to my viewers out there. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.